Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ali and here I just talk to myself about books and then someone, maybe you may want to watch this at a later date. Once again, Happy New Year, Happy 2026. Let's hope for a very good year in general, but also reading year. Today I'm going to be doing a similar video to what I did at the end of 2024, which is essentially going to be a bit of a 2025 wrap up. So let's get started. So for this end of year book tag, I'm going to be using the same questions I used in my 2024 video, which I got from a mixture of questions that were on What There's Is Reading's channel, as well as Larry Reads. So I ended up kind of mushing some of the questions together that I enjoyed, and I will be using those again this time. So let's get started with question one. I did have to write them down because I'm terrible at remembering things. So question one is a book or series you wish you'd gotten to this year. I mean, there are so many. I don't even know where to start, but I have had a bit of a reshuffle of my bookshelves. I don't know if you can tell, I have moved some books around, mainly because one of my bookshelves broke, so I had to kind of rejig the weight because it's now precariously balanced. I will not be buying a new bookshelf yet because we're hopefully going to be moving this year, so I thought I might as well just wait until we've moved. But there are a number of books I wish I had gotten to in 2025 that I didn't get to, that are now going to be a priority in 2026, hopefully, and the majority of them are series. So the Book That Wouldn't Burn series, I really wanted to get to that last year and then I didn't. The Magician series by Raymond E. Feist, that is called the Rift War Saga. I really wanted to get to that. It was the first series I got, or the second series I think I got through my Broken Binding subscription, and it looks really good. It looks like pure 80s like hardcore epic fantasy, and I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. Behind me you will see the Bound and Broken series by Ryan Cahill. I'm currently on book 2. I did wish I had managed to finish the entire series in 2025, but I am going to be finishing it by the end of January. It is my first and foremost priority. Other books I wish I had gotten to in 2025, I feel like I'm just going to name every single book on my TBR, but I did really want to read the Nevernight series by J. Kristoff, so again that's hopefully going to be one I pick up this year, as well as pretty much anything written by John Gwynne. Like, I want to read his entire backlog, and I want to read it before his new book comes out later this year, so that's kind of again another priority. I don't know if there's any others in particular that I wish I'd gotten to, but pretty much anything on my TBR. The second question is your most disappointing book of the year. So there are a few, maybe like 2 or 3 options here. So I'll go with like my least liked book of the year, then I'll go with one that I was hoping to like but was the most disappointing, and then I'll go with one that I still really enjoyed but was just not living up to the hype I had expected and kind of gone into it with. So first of all, the book I enjoyed absolutely least in the world this year was none other than the first book in the Zodiac Academy series. I have spoken about this at length. I just didn't enjoy this at all, and I feel quite bad because I know it is a fan favourite on BookTok and Bookstagram, but it is just my opinion. It doesn't mean anything if it is one of your favourite series. For me, it just didn't work. I found the characters quite superficial. I didn't enjoy the bully romance element of it. Had I probably known that before going into it, I would have known that isn't something I really enjoy, so I probably would have not really picked it up. I also just found like the world building not that good. It was like definitely more focused on the romance elements of the romantasy side of it, and there are like I think 14 or 15 books, and since I disliked the first one so much, I was like, there's just no way I'm going to invest that much time and energy into a series that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to enjoy. So that was my least favourite book of the year, probably the most disappointing given how much hype it has on BookTok and Bookstagram. Then secondly, I think I'm not alone in this, but one of my most disappointing reads of this year was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which is the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, or Fourth Wing series. Now, I don't even know what to say about this book. Like, it wasn't great and it was quite disappointing. Now, I quite enjoyed Fourth Wing, like the first book in the series. With Iron Flame, I was a little bit like, and after Iron Flame, I originally had like the special editions of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I decided to get rid of them because I was like, this isn't a book series that I think I want to own in hardcover or special editions. So I ended up getting the paperbacks, which are like down here somewhere. I'm waiting for obviously Onyx Storm to come out, but I did read it and it just kind of feels like it's getting progressively worse. It was definitely, given the hype surrounding Onyx Storm, a disappointment. I found it very convoluted. I found it very info dumpy, but not in a way that made sense. And kind of the bits that I didn't enjoy in Iron Flame, for example, like the back and forth and the miscommunication tropes, they didn't really improve that much in Onyx Storm. Now, saying that, I will continue this series because I feel like I have read 3 books now and I'm kind of invested in seeing how this story ends, but I feel like it's one of those things that potentially could have been wrapped up in 3 books but has been extended, so there's a lot of like filler content that I don't really care for. And also with Onyx Storm in particular, I just found it so hard, and I don't know why, because I've definitely read like more complex books, let's say, with more characters and more politics and stuff in it, and managed to like remember how everything's slotted together. But for Onyx Storm, for some reason, I was literally like, who the hell are these people? What is their backstory? I literally couldn't remember anything. It was crazy. So I ended up having to kind of go back and forth to like work out like the context for certain characters and like things they were doing, which kind of did dampen my enjoyment of the book further. So that's kind of a disappointment for this year. And then last but not least, this isn't a book that was necessarily disappointing. It wasn't. I still really enjoyed it. I gave it like 4 stars, I think. But it was unfortunately not living up to the hype and expectations I had set for it, which did it in turn make it a little bit disappointing. And this breaks my heart to say, because it is still one of my favorite series and I do absolutely love the first book. I gave it 5 stars, and that is The Strength of the Few by James Islington. I don't know, I absolutely adored The Will of the Many. It was one of my favorite books of 2023, I want to say. I gave it 5 stars. I was so hyped for book 2 to come out, and I'm still kind of hyped for book 3 to come out. Like, I'm very much looking forward to the end of this series. But and spoiler alert, if you don't want to know the ins and outs of Strength of the Few, do skip ahead a little bit. If you have read The Will of the Many, you know that there is kind of like a multiverse situation going on towards the end, and I found it really hard to keep track of which character we were following in what universe. I really struggled with that, and it made it harder for me to like get invested in the story, but also I felt like the same depth of characterization and world development and plotting wasn't even across the 3 different worlds. And so you had like the original world, which was Res, which I really enjoyed, was probably like my favorite, and I could have just done the story reading those chapters and I probably would have enjoyed it more. But then we had the other 2 that I just didn't like as much. I felt like they were quite shallow. One of them in particular, and I can't remember which one it is, I just was like, I don't understand the purpose of this storyline at all. I don't understand why he is being characterized in this way and why we are following this random storyline. It doesn't seem to feed into anything, and maybe that's something that will be resolved in book 3, but I unfortunately just, given how hyped I was for it, given how much I loved The Will of the Many, I was quite disappointed because I was hoping to love it even more and I didn't. I still love The Will of the Many more. That's not saying I didn't enjoy the book. I really did, and it is still a really good fantasy series. I just felt like it fell a little bit short of expectations, and it was almost trying to do a little bit too much without kind of the right execution, let's say. But I still really enjoyed it, still loved the writer's style, I still am invested in the story. However, it was a little bit disappointing. Apologies because I have a visitor. Did you go zoomies? Did you? On your walkies? Did you go zoom zooms? Yes. You liked it? He's gonna sit here with me and probably whinge every now and then. That is fine. Isn't it, buddy? Isn't it? Good boy. Good boy. I am stealing your room, to be fair. But it's okay. Anyway, so I can't be doing a video without the pooch appearing. Isn't that right, buddy? Bless him, he can't work out how to lay down because the stand is in the way, despite the fact that there is literally half a bed left. You're not that big. I know you're big, but you're not that big. You can sit down. You can sit down. You sit down. Anyway, right, we'll just continue on because otherwise I'll be waiting all day. If you see the thing shaking, it's because it's readjusting. So, question 3. A book that you read that was on your TBR the longest. Well, there is a lot of contenders. I'm also just very, very, very bad at reading the older books on my TBR because I just get so excited by the ones that I'll like see hyped up on social media, or also that I have like bought more recently, and I end up prioritizing those ones instead of reading ones that have been maybe on my TBR for like 1,000 years. But I would probably say that one of my longest living contenders on my TBR was definitely the Name of the Wind series. I did read book 1, book 2 and the novella, the first novella. So that was, I'm just gonna look here, I've got my little Dragon Ball. So The Name of the Wind, The Wise Man's Fear and Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. It actually ended up being one of my favourite series of 2025. I absolutely adored it. I have now joined the masses in waiting for the 3rd and final book, which will never come. Although I have heard there has been movement on the translator website, so that could mean anything. But that was a few months ago and I've heard nothing since, and I'm not holding my breath. I feel like it's definitely a George R.R. Martin situation, but I absolutely adored that series and I am very much looking forward to it eventually being finished because I do really want to know how it ends. But yes, that was probably one of the ones I had on my TBR the longest. My partner had bought it for me a couple of years ago for my birthday and I just had not got to it, partially because I knew that the 3rd and final book was nowhere in sight, and I didn't want to have to wait for ages to finish the story. However, now I will be doing that, so here we are. But yes, I really, really liked that series and it is definitely one of my favourites. I don't think I included it in my favourite reads of 2025 videos, so like my best and worst, and I don't know why. I do know why. I had so many that I had to kind of cut it off. But it is one of the ones that would have made the best books of 2025 for me cut off. And essentially in that story we follow a character. It's a bit like a flashback, very much like my beloved Empire of the Vampire, where we follow a character in the present who is working in an inn, and he tells the tale of this young boy who grew up to be named the King Killer. Now we know who that is potentially, so it kind of is a bit of flash backwards and forwards. So he's telling the tale to a chronicler who is someone that records chronicles, you've heard it here, and we kind of follow back to how this child started off, how he ended up going to kind of like the magic school, and then eventually how he ended up being corrupted, etc., to end up becoming the King Killer. Now, because the last and final book is not yet done or published or finished, we don't actually know what happened to lead to that, but it is very, very good and I do highly recommend that series. Question 4 is, what was an underdog book that you have read this year? And I think I have 2 options for this. So first of all, maybe 3 actually. So first of all, I would say one of the most underdog books I've read this year that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, but was definitely one of my favourites of 2025, is none other than The Raven Scholar, which is somewhere over here. It came as part of one of the Illumicrate subs and I really loved it. I think it's going to be a trilogy. I am incredibly obsessed with it. The political kind of and the world building and the fact that it is somewhat based around zodiac type animals. I absolutely love it. It's also got elements of like murder mystery in it, a lot of fantasy, and the plot twists are insane and I highly recommend. So that is by Antonia Hodgson. They have just announced the title of the new book, which I think is called The Fox in Winter, but not sure on a release date for that one yet. But I am incredibly excited for the series to continue, and I just haven't heard as many people talk about it as I hoped I would, because I think it is one of the best books of 2025. So that for me was definitely an underdog read. I will then also, and I have seen this one a little bit more, so I don't know if it is necessarily an underdog series, but Spark of the Everflame. So I can't remember what the actual series is called, but like, so Spark of the Everflame, there are currently 3 books out. The 4th book was due to be released when it was still being indie published. However, now it's been traditionally published and Penn/Cole has not yet announced when she will be releasing the last book, which is the 4th book. Or is it 5 books in total? Don't remember, but anyway, again, it's one that I have seen mentioned around, but maybe not as much as I would have expected. It's definitely more in the fantasy romance camp, even romantasy I've seen people label it as. To me, it wasn't necessarily romantasy because I don't feel like the romance is the sole focus of the book. It is definitely fantasy with romance in my eyes, in the same way that like ACOTAR is. However, I did really enjoy that series. I absolutely binged it and it did end up being one of my favourite series of 2025, especially because it helped to break up some of the like really heavy series that I was reading that were more like grimdark and stuff. I quite enjoyed it. In this book we follow DM. DM is the daughter of an army general and also of a healer. She has always wanted to escape the tiny village that she has been stuck in because it is currently being ruled and oppressed by these kind of demigod-like creatures known as the Descended. They are descendants of the gods who were meant to essentially protect humanity but have let power corrupt them and have become the oppressors, and because they are stronger, faster, richer, etc., they can do whatever they want and they get away with it, and that doesn't sit very well with DM. However, when her mother goes missing, her kind of like plans to leave the village are somewhat thwarted because she has to, well, she wants to work out what happened to her mum. The last sighting that she had of her mum was of her mum talking to a Descended who is actually part of the royal family. So there is kind of like all of that going on, which is all very weird. And then DM also gets embroiled in a rebellion and ends up essentially becoming part of this rebellion and infiltrating a Descended home on behalf of the rebellion under the siege of being a healer, to try and find out more about it and also to help provide information that will help the rebellion kind of beat the Descended. So that's kind of what that story is, and it does just go off. It is definitely kind of a chosen one vibe, so if you don't like that as a subgenre, this probably isn't for you. But I did really enjoy it, and I really liked kind of the found family elements. It did remind me a lot of ACOTAR in that respect, and I did really like it. However, by far the most underdog series and books for me this year, and they're probably not underdogs at all, they're very well known in their circles, but for me specifically the most underdog series was definitely Horus Rising. So I have spoken at length about this series. I was very pleasantly surprised. I didn't think I would like it because it is set in Warhammer world. Warhammer is a tabletop RPG game. It is also a game that you can now get on like PC, etc. But it isn't something I ever thought I would enjoy. And my partner absolutely is obsessed with Warhammer, and he's been begging me to read the books, saying that I will like them for like years. He has read like hundreds, I don't even know how many. So eventually he broke me down and I was like, let me read the initial trilogy, which is the Horus Rising trilogy in the 40k universe of Warhammer. And oh my god, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Now, if you're wanting grimdark, if you're wanting violent action, space-based fantasy, Please, please, please check out the Horus Rising series. Like, I need more people to be talking about this on BookTok and Bookstagram. It is not just if you're a fan of Warhammer. You do not need to know anything about Warhammer. You do not need to play Warhammer. You do not need to like even know what Warhammer is. It is just a really, really good space-based fantasy grimdark series. And I'm absolutely obsessed. So I have read the first 3 books. As I said, there are hundreds and they're all written by different authors. So even the initial trilogy is written by 3 different authors, but it doesn't feel disjointed at all. It does run very smoothly. And then you can kind of pick where you want to go in terms of like what factions you're interested in, what storylines you're interested in, whose side you're on of like kind of the war and story, and also the type of story that you like. So they have things that are more like fantasy based, like epic fantasy and lore. There is more like sci-fi ones, and then there's more things like detective stories, etc. They are all grimdark, so not a single character in any of these stories is good. And I don't mind. I really, really enjoyed it, and I ended up actually rooting for them despite the fact that they all are definitely not good characters. But yeah, really, really liked it. Please, please, please check out the Horus Rising series. Okay, next question is, what was an overhyped book that you read this year? I mean, I feel like I've already touched upon this, so I won't kind of rehash it, but Zodiac Academy for sure. Onyx Storm as well. And is there any others I've read that I found like incredibly overhyped? Elsie Silver. I tried really hard. To enjoy Elsie Silver's Chestnut Spring series. I read book 1 and 2. I had got book 3 as well, and I just never made it to read it. It was not for me. I don't think I like cowboy romance, and I don't think I like it when there is hardly any plot. As you can see here, this is my romance shelf, contemporary romance shelf. I definitely would say that in terms of like romance, I prefer it in a fantasy setting, so I don't mind fantasy romance and also romantasy at times, but I still do need there to be kind of enough world building and plot to make the storyline engaging. When it comes to contemporary romance, it turns out I have like 2 authors that I know can do no wrong, and that is Ali Hazelwood and BK Borison, and they are here on my shelf behind me, and I think I'm just gonna stick to them 2 because every time I have ventured out of Ali Hazelwood and BK Borison land, it just has not worked out for me. And unfortunately, Elsie Silver was such a thing. It is incredibly hyped on BookTok and Bookstagram. It is absolutely everywhere, and I just didn't like it at all. So unfortunately for me, I didn't like them. Apologies. Please don't hate me, but not for me. Next question is, new favourite author you discovered this year? There are so many. There are so many. I would definitely have to say Ryan Cahill is one of my new favourite authors that I discovered in 2025. I think this series, The Bound and Broken, is going to end up being one of my favourite series ever. It is, and quote me on this, it is as if Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings had a smush baby and out pops The Bound and Broken. It's got everything you absolutely adored in like childhood epic fantasy tales, which were things like orcs, elves, mages, like, you know, your standard when you think epic fantasy, dragons. Like, it's got everything. There's politics, there's loads of different kind of like storylines converging at different points, loads of characters, found family. It's got absolutely everything. I'm nearing the end of book 2 at the moment, and I absolutely am adoring it. So I now have another novella and 2 more books to go. The next novella is due to be released, and then I think there's also a really, really tiny novella, but I don't think you can get it printed out, so I'm gonna have to find that one online somewhere. And then I think the next book is due to be released at some point, but I'm not sure when. But yeah, that is definitely an author that I discovered this year, well, in 2025, and I absolutely loved. Another author, Piers Brown, 100%. I forgot that I started that in 2025, but I read the entire published series of Red Rising, so that's the first 6 books. Book 7 is due to be out this year in 2026, called Red God, but Piers Brown is a new author to me. It's definitely not a new author to anybody else, but to me for sure, and I love it. I love Red Rising, my little Hunger Games set in space, which then just becomes unhinged and is grimdark, and I absolutely adore it. It has broken my heart in more ways than I can count, and that has been a theme this year. I feel like I have been definitely put through the paces in terms of emotional turmoil, whether that be by Piers Brown, Jay Kristoff, Ryan Cahill is definitely starting to get there. But I think that for me, that is definitely another new author that I absolutely loved. And another one that is maybe not so much in the fantasy realm, Grady Hendrix. I read, I think, everything he's published so far except for one book, which is How to Sell a Haunted House, so in 2025. And again, he is not a new author by any means, but he was a new author to me, and I absolutely adore his work. So it's definitely kind of like satirical horror, and a lot of it does pay homage to like 80s 90s horror type stories, whether that be like books or movies. And I have loved everything I have read by him so far, and I'm going to keep an eye out on anything else he publishes, but also try and read anything else that I have yet to pick up that has already been published. And I'm pretty sure it's just one book, but I want to double check that. So again, Grady Hendrix, another new author to me that I absolutely loved in 2025. Question 7 is an author that didn't work out for you this year, and apart from the ones that I have already mentioned, so the authors, and there are two that I don't remember the name of right now, of Zodiac Academy and also Elsie Silver, which just didn't work out for me. There were 2 books that I ended up DNFing this year, predominantly because of the writing style, and I was really surprised because I thought I would love them, and I was actually quite upset that I didn't. So first of all, we had Those Bones Are Not My Child by Toni Cade Bambara. This is a fiction, but kind of written in a way that is almost like true crime, and it follows the tale of kind of set in reality, a kind of real life serial killer that was around in the 80s that was predominantly preying on lower socioeconomic background neighborhoods, and a lot of them were kind of like black neighborhoods in America, and kidnapping and murdering children. So that was the kind of like premise of the story, but it did follow a few different characters that had been impacted by such an event, and it was written a little bit like true crime, and I really wanted to love this book. I thought it had absolutely everything that I would enjoy, but I ended up just struggling so much with the writing that I think I got to 60% and I ended up DNFing it. It is a very chunky book. It did turn out in the end that the author actually had passed away before being able to edit the book before publishing, and it was edited by another author, so Toni Morrison, I believe, who is a very good author in her own stead, but I think perhaps because it wasn't her original work, it wasn't kind of as edited as it needed to be, because it just read, it was really like verbose in places, and there was a lot of repetition, and it was just really kind of hard to get through. It was very much a slog to kind of get through the book, so I really struggled, and I was quite upset because I really wanted to like it, but unfortunately I think the writer's style and the way that the story was carried throughout wasn't for me. So I would say probably Toni Cade Bambara didn't work out for me in 2025. It doesn't mean I won't try any other books she's written. I will. And then the other one, and this might come as a surprise because again it was one I thought I would absolutely love, but another one I ended up DNFing, I can't even remember, about halfway through, I would say about like 45-50% through, and that was A Song of Legends Lost by M.H. Ayinda. And again, I was really surprised with this because I thought I would love it, but I really struggled with the writing style. I quite enjoyed the like premise and the content and the characters and stuff, but the writing style I just really struggled with. I found it quite boring, I found it quite slow, and then it was also a little bit confusing. I just didn't feel invested in any of the characters. I was confused as to like how they linked together, and again it was one that was like overly verbose for no reason in my opinion. And I know a lot of people have really loved this book, and I wish I was one of them, and maybe I'll try it again at some point. It's definitely happened before where I've like read a book and I wasn't in the right kind of mind space to read that book, and maybe this one was on me. I had a lot going on at the time, So I will try it again at some point, I think, but in 2025 at least, that was definitely an author and writer style that just didn't work for me, unfortunately. Then penultimate question, oh no, it's not penultimate question at all. Question number 8, a book that you haven't stopped thinking about. There are so many. I definitely have to say though that the top 2 contenders are Empire of the Dawn by J. Kristoff and Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. I have not stopped thinking about either of those 2 books since I finished reading them. They destroyed all of my emotions, shredded my soul. I am dramatic about it, but they know what they did and I don't think they're sorry for it. I think they know very well what they're doing. I really loved, as I said, the Empire of the Vampire trilogy. It's one of my favourite series ever, and definitely one of my favourite series that I finished in 2025. And as I just mentioned earlier in this video, I really loved Red Rising, and Lightbringer in particular, which is the last book currently published, so the 6th book, was just insane. Like, I ended up, for both Empire of the Dawn and Lightbringer, having to like stop at certain points to put the book down and take like a mental rest break because I just couldn't cope with what was happening. And a lot of the time I was just like, I'm gonna throw this book at the wall, this is ridiculous, I cannot deal. In the best way though, in the absolute best way. And again, they're both quite grimdark, so the good characters that you kind of fall in love with and root for, etc., aren't actually good. They're definitely like war criminals and do very questionable things, but you do end up loving them. And I really love, again, they have like found family elements, which I have said time and time again is one of my favorite subgenres or tropes, and I just love it. I absolutely love both of them, and I have not stopped thinking about either of those books. And are there any others I haven't stopped thinking about? There is obviously like Alchemized, but because I already knew what that story was going to be, having read Manacled, I feel like that doesn't necessarily count because I knew the storyline. However, I did absolutely love Alchemized as well, and it is one that is continuously playing on my mind, and I really liked how it was changed to give it its own world and context and magic system and stuff, so probably that one as well. But definitely top 2 contenders, Lightbringer, Empire of the Dawn. Okay, we're getting to the end. So penultimate question is reading goal reflections. It's not really a question, but so my reading goal for 2025 in terms of numbers was to read 60 books, which I thought I would quite comfortably do, and I did. I think I ended up reading 141 books in the end by the end of 2025. So you know, that was definitely a lot more than 60, but I never like to give myself too big a target in terms of like number of books, because sometimes I will read really long and heavy books and it will take me longer. And also I knew I had a lot going on last year, so I didn't want to put kind of, you know, reading's meant to be a fun activity that I enjoy, that is helpful to me in terms of my mental health and stress and anxiety and things like that, and I didn't want it to become a chore because I had this like arbitrary goal that I had to reach. So I always tend to pick kind of like a lower goal in terms of numbers, but I think this year I'm probably going to increase it a little bit, because I think given the fact that the past few years I have read over 100 books, so that is probably quite a comfortable goal for me. But my main goal was to improve on the star ratings compared to the previous year, and I'm pretty sure I did that. I'm pretty sure in 2024 my average star rating was like 3.7, and in 2025 it was 3.84, which doesn't sound like a lot, but given the amount of books I read, I felt like it was more. I felt like there were definitely more books that I enjoyed more, and I think in terms of like those 4.5 plus stars, I'm pretty sure there were more in 2025 than there were in 2024. So in my eyes, that goal was very much well achieved. So yeah. And then last but not least, my new reading goal for 2026. So again, I don't like to really set numbers, but I think I'm going to set a number on like Fable and Storygraph of 100 books this year, to try to read 100 books in 2026. But again, much like last year, my main focus is to read more books that are better quality, so that I end up giving higher star ratings to, that I enjoy more, that are more thought-provoking for me, and that I like stick in my mind more. But also one of my main goals of 2026 is to read most, if not all, of the series that I currently own pretty much in full. Like, I own all of the books and just haven't read them yet. So I will be doing a video of like my 2026 reading plans, so do check that out when it does come out. But I will go more in depth there into what my plan is for how I'm going to be reading all of the books I currently have on my TBR. Well, not all of them, but like how I'm going to get through a lot of them in 2026 and kind of like what my priorities are. So yeah, there's that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do pop a like, and if you would like to see more, please do subscribe. Let me know down below the answers to any of those questions I asked. In particular, kind of what were your favourites of 2025, and are there any books that you recommend I check out if you haven't seen that I've read them already. And yeah, I'll see you soon.